Hi, I'm Wendy Yi, and welcome to the Dice Tower. Today, I'm going to do a rapid-fire roundup, which means I am doing little mini reviews of games that people have already reviewed on the Dice Tower, or of games that are so small that they don't really need their own review with lots of people in it. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's see what the first one is. First game on my list that I want to talk about is The Lie. Now, this is a little shedding card game where players are going to actually real-time build their hand, and they're going to be grabbing cards from the middle that are just all kind of scattered face down. But the interesting thing about this is that each one of those cards that's face down has a color and a number on it on the back. But on the front side actually may have either a different color or a different number. So that's what the lie is that the back side of the card has one truth and one lie essentially for it. So as you're building your hand, as for shedding games, you have to put them in the order that you grab them. You can't just rearrange stuff. And then the actual shedding part of the game, you're going to be laying down cards of the same color, and you always have to make a bigger number. So the number, the cards themselves are actually going to be the digits within the number. So if you lay down a yellow 2 and a yellow 3, that becomes the number 23. Someone later on could lay down 3 cards, in the row, and maybe they would have 1, 2, 3, which would be 123. And so as they get laid down, eventually people are not going to be able to go higher. Everyone's going to pass. And then whoever happened to be the one that won that trick or that shedding round is going to pick a card from that face down pile in the middle, and they're going to get whatever points are on it. Once again, it could be a 4 on top and really it's worth 1 point, or vice versa. It could be a 1 on top and it'll be worth 4 points. Or it could be 4 versus worth 4 because it could just be a different color as well. So anyways, it's an interesting game. I like that it has a little bit more to it than just a regular shedding game because you're not just given a hand, but instead you have a little bit of choice. And I know that choice is still kind of random because you have a 50-50 chance of getting what you're looking for. And so if you're like, ooh, I have a bunch of yellows in a row in my hand. This is great. I'm going to grab a yellow card. Oh, wait, it's red. There's definitely that feeling of like, oh, I feel so disappointed that it's not what I wanted. But also you're doing it so quickly that you just kind of are making split-second decisions anyways. But I like the idea of the lies. I like the shedding nature of it because I'm not always all about shedding games. But I like that it doesn't have to be the same numbers and the same stuff in a row. You really are just playing whatever numbers out you want as long as they're the same color. And so I think that that's clever in itself. So anyways, I'm going to give this one a 7 for The Lie. I think that it's a fun little shedding game, and I think that if it sounds interesting to you, you might as well try it. Next up on my list is Orapa Mine, and this is one that was actually relatively recently reviewed on the channel. And Orapa Mine is a deduction game where someone has a secret set of shapes behind their little screen on the board, and then there's columns and rows that you can basically send light into, and when light touches those different pieces, it's going to come out. It's going to like bounce around on the pieces and it's going to exit. And so there's these rules and paths of how it bounces around and how the color changes. So you say enter, on this side here, and it's going to say, well, we're going to exit out the bottom here and it's going to be this color. And you're essentially using that sense of like radar almost to figure out what the different shapes are and where they're located, drawing it out, and then you're going to see if you're correct, right? This one I think is best at 2 players because you're both getting to give clues as well as gain clues. Obviously, in a bigger group, it can be fun too, where you just have one person and everybody else is trying to figure it out through deduction. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And this one, honestly, is a really good weeknight game because it doesn't take a ton of time. And I thought that it was going to be excessively difficult. Like when it was explained to me, I was like, no, this sounds awful. But actually, I really enjoyed it. And I think that it has some cool deduction aspects. And I love the color mixing and I love the bouncing around. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on with it. For me, this is a 9. I think that it is absolutely fabulous. I'm giving it a seal of excellence for sure because it's a great game. It's a great deduction game. So there you go. Orapa Mine, that's a 9. Next on my list for reviews is the game Donuts. Now this is a re-implementation of Bruno Catala's inserts game. And so what happens in this game is it's very abstract, and you're placing out these cute little donuts on this board, but wherever you place them is going to say where the row, column, or diagonal is going to be that the next player has to place in. And so you're essentially like looking ahead and saying, hey, okay, you can only place in this row next. And you're like, okay, well, I'll place in this row, and then that means you can only place in this diagonal next. And so essentially you're trying to set up these moments where you're going to actually land your donut in between two opposite colored pieces of another player, and you're going to actually flip those over and they become your color. And your goal in the end is to get 5 in a row. So it's an interesting mix of, what is that droppy game? Connect 4. It's kind of like Connect 4 on a board, but more abstract. I kind of think of like Othello, and I've never actually played Go, but I imagine what Go would be. Anyway, some of those kind of like other abstracty games, it has some feels behind that. It's one that I think that the theme is what really carries it forward in our family, because my daughter loves anything that's like cutesy and desserty, and so the donuts makes it great. I also like that it gives you very specific things that you can look at. It's not an entire board where you're like, I don't know what they're going to do. You know exactly what the next player is going to do. Well, not exactly, but you know exactly the like few spaces that they can go to. And so I feel like it's a little bit easier to look ahead and think ahead strategically or tactically than in some of the other abstract games. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and give Donuts a 7 because I think it's good for an abstract game. I'm happy to play it again, and we do play it, honestly, quite a few times. So there you go. Next up is Milkuro. So in Milkuro, you have these two-sided cards, and everyone just dealt a bunch of cards. And you're essentially going to be playing a following trick-taking game. But whoever is the leader is going to choose which side of the cards everyone's going to use. So you say, hey, I want to use the white side or the black side. And then everyone has to follow using the white side or the black side of a card. And then just basically whoever has the highest card gets to be the winner of that round. They get to collect the tricks, and then they get to lead the next one. What is interesting, but also what I didn't really like about this game, was the scoring. So the way that the scoring works is that you want to have equal white wins and equal black wins. So tricks where you were playing out white versus tricks that you were playing out black. You want to have them equal. And if they're equal, then you can add up each one of those columns and those sets of tricks that you won, and you get positive points. Yay! However, if they are unequal, then you get negative points when you add them all together. And so you actually subtract that. And so I feel like this game is a cute idea behind a trick-taking game, but then I absolutely hate the scoring. Like maybe the number, you know what I mean? Like maybe the black and white could be cool, but the scoring is just very uninteresting. And I feel like you're playing a whole lot of tricks in a row, and then really all that matters are like the last 2 tricks. And you're just like, okay, I'm keeping it equal. And really is like, I set everybody up so that, you know, you lose and I win. It's one of those that I just find it very unsatisfying. And yeah, it just feels like, why are we playing the rest of the game when all that matters is those last couple rounds? At least that's all that it feels like. And then also, it just is so slight. Like, to get exactly equal is a hard thing to do anyways in a trick-taking game. To, you know what I mean? To plan out ahead and make things perfect. And the fact that you lose so many points. Anyways, this game could just be all negative points. I don't find it enjoyable. Like I said, the trick-taking part is fine, but I'm giving this a 4 because I think the scoring is terrible and I don't enjoy it. So there you go. That is Milkuro. Next up on my list is Duck and Cover. Now this is a cute little card game where everyone gets a grid of ducks 1 through 12. And then every round from the main card deck, you're going to be flipping over a card and it's going to have a number on it. And then everyone is going to take that number and they are going to place it either on top of an adjacent number to cover something, or they're going to duck. And that means that they're going to go to an outside adjacent space with that card. The goal of the game is to basically be the person that has your stack down to just 1 card so that everything has eventually been covered up. And if you're not, then you want to have whatever card showing to be of the lowest points. So the game is cute. The game is very cute. I love the art. I think that it's fun. Everyone has a different style of duck in front of them. So, you have different stacks of 1 through 12s that just have different design. They all work the same. But I think that that's cute, and I think it adds a fun element to it that's very family friendly. And then the actual playing of it is interesting. One, you have to quack. So if you literally can't do anything because that card, the number that's pulled is covered up, you have to quack. And I find that to be funny. I know a lot of people may find that to be annoying. And you obviously could come up with your own rule instead of quacking, but I think it's cute. But then the actual gameplay of trying to figure out, is it worth it to use a high number card to cover up a low number card? Because that's a big mess that you're making at the end of the game if that's the one showing. However, if you can be the person down to 1 stack, you actually don't even score that number. You score differently. And so you're like, do I think that I can be the person to get down to that single stack? Do I think I'm going to have that 12 showing next to another big number and then have a huge mess at the end and huge points? So I think that that's a cool balance going on. Plus, I like that you can rearrange those cards and move to an outside area if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and give this in 1 and 8. I think it's cute. I think it's fun. It's a nice, light, simple kind of weeknight game activity. Yeah. And I like ducks. Ducks are just adorable. So there you go. That's Duck and Cover. Next on my list is Claw Machine, and the theme is exactly what it sounds like, a giant claw machine coming down and picking up stuffed animals. And the stuffed animals are essentially cards. So there's this grid in front of you of cards, and you're trying to get your claw to the right cards that you want to pick up those stuffed animals and then collect those cards. As you collect them, they're going to have a variety of scoring. And in fact, you don't even use all the cards every game, so that is going to switch up between games. So in Claw Machine, you have these arrows in front of you, and that is how you're going to move. So on your turn, you either have to move or you have to reset your arrows. So to move, you basically are going to flip those upside down and say, hey, I moved to the right, so now I can no longer move to the right until that arrow is reset. And you're just moving around, and you have to pick up a card, even if it's one you don't want. So you move around, you pick up cards, and you just kind of try to steal the stuff that's in people's way. Also, as you pick up cards and piles empty out, then you just kind of scooch over cards from other piles, as in you've kind of let all the stuffed animals fall down into the little holes and stuff. So I think it's cute thematically. I think that the art is adorable, and I think that theme does really carry through. The actual gameplay is fine to me. It's not amazing, but I do think that theme helps it raise it up a little bit. Not enough for a 7. I'm not quite there, but this is a 6.5 for me. It's one of those that, yeah, you can find the scoring to be uninteresting if you just can't get to the card that you need to get to. And you can get stuck in corners where you need to go a specific direction. And I think that honestly is part of it, is you could really think ahead and you could be like, hey, I see that they're missing these arrows. I'm going to come in and I'm going to swoop in this area and I'm going to draw this card and steal it from them because they can't move in that direction. And so I think there's a little bit of higher thinking behind it that you can, or you can just play and be like, I'm going to go over here and get this stuffed animal because I like it. So this is 6.5 for me. It's almost there. I think the replayability is good, but the actual the joystick movement it's only okay to me. So there you go. Next up on my list is Endeavor Deep Sea. So this is a diving game where you are exploring out as well as down into the ocean. And you're trying to collect these science-y double helix tokens so that you can do all these cool actions and preservation and that kind of stuff. So the theme is very much there if you like that diving ocean-y theme. But in this game, it's almost like an action management, disc management selection game. So you have these discs that you can get as income every round, as well as you have actions you can get. And you really have to balance out the actions and the discs because you can get them from the supply or you can get them back off actions. But when an action's covered up, you can't use it. And so there's such an interesting dynamic there that I find to be very fascinating. Like the machine part of my brain is like, ooh, this is cool. I like the way that these discs work and the actions work so that I can do all the cool exploring that's out there. The resources are also pretty tight, so it is like a resource management game, and you're definitely trying to figure out how to use those to the best of ability because there are very specific goals that change from game to game. So there's a lot of variety in what those goals are, and so the games can give you different focuses. And I always appreciate that in games when you can be given kind of a focus and try something new and something different that you didn't try last game. And so I appreciate that. I know some people just want to explore and play whatever they want, and you can, you just won't get all the points from meeting the objectives. So Endeavor Deep Sea, this one is a great game. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. It is definitely an excellent game. It's a lot of fun, and I love how that theme, and I love those mechanics in there of really just trying to manipulate how those worker discs work. Last on my list is the Mistborn deck building game, and this is based on the Mistborn book of series. And I do feel like this thematically is very nicely tied in. So in this deck building game, you're doing a lot of normal deck building stuff, right? But every card has a particular metal type. And those metal types, you can actually burn metals, or you can consume them to be able to make that card a stronger or a better action. And this ties in thematically because in the books, you can actually like consume metal, and then you can use that metal to gain a specific power, as in you can push against metal objects, or you can pull against metal objects, or you can see metal objects. Like there's a lot of different powers and abilities. And in this game, you are one of the Mistborn characters that can do everything, right? They're capable of doing all the different powers. And I really like how there is a learning mechanism in this so that as you get stronger, you can actually burn more of these metals. And then there's also kind of an overclock ability, which means that you can push yourself past what you're really capable of, and you can burn additional metals. But then those metals, you have to basically discard cards to be able to get that ability back, so you don't have that ability for a while. And that's an interesting element that I didn't use much because it feels like you're giving up. You know what I mean? You're like building this deck of these cards, so hopefully you're going to see that particular type of card again. And so you're like, is it worth it to get rid of this, at least temporarily, until I can, in the future, waste an action or waste a turn, waste a card, whatever, to get that back? So that's an interesting element there. That's fascinating. So I like the theme. I like what's going on with the deck building. I think that for me, deck buildings in general has just kind of waned. I really, really love Dominion, and it's one that I played like crazy. I played some other deck buildings a ton, but it's one that's just kind of waned for me. So there's not going to be like a super huge high score, even though I love the theme behind it. And I love how it ties that in. But this is going to be a 7.5 for me because I do think that it's a good, solid game. I love how that theme works, and I think that there's a lot of fun to it, and it has some unique elements that you don't see in other deck building games with those little unique abilities. So there you go, 7.5 for me. Well, that wraps up the rapid fire roundup that I had for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. As for the games, please share in the comments below if you have any thoughts in addition that you'd like to add to some of these. And in the meantime, I'm Wendy Yi. This is the Dice Tower, and keep playing all them fabulous games.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you, and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Bassel.
Orapa Mine, that's a 9, that rhymes. Orapa Mine, that's a 9, it rhymes. Orapa Mine, that's a 9, it rhymes.